Still playing around. Let me get my correct logo here. Than I had before. If I don't get 50, who's gonna save my day? Maybe I'll get lucky, maybe I'll have to pray. Mary's Rosary. Welcome once again, everyone, to Mary's School of Prophecy. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the Eagle of the Apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. Now, I noticed Sister said I'm sad to miss Sam's rosary, but I have to monitor for William. Well, I planned this. I thought I planned it so that you could still watch Sam's rosary. I thought he began an hour ago, didn't he? Or did I mess this up? I must have. I thought I planned it so you could watch both Pieta Rosary and WMD Rosary, but maybe I messed up. In any event, you can always watch this program later, or you could say the rosary later, because I'm going to say a rosary later myself. In any event, I felt I wanted to do this program today because Dana Coverstone did post a new video this morning, and that's why I didn't announce it to all of you this morning to alert you. And he posted a very interesting addition to a previous dream, which he reported on, which he called They Don't Hate Me, They Hate You dream. And that's the dream where Dana Coverstone listed the 5 elements in our society that cannot save America. If you remember that, he went through the military, the church, Donald Trump, and so on. There were 5 elements. And he added and the reason he said he did not add this part before was because he thought it needed additional interpretation. I don't think that's why he didn't add it. I think the Holy Spirit was guiding him to add this later, this new part that he described this morning, which I will read to you. And he thought that it came at the beginning of the prophecy, but I don't think so. I think it's supposed to come at the end of the prophecy. That is what it makes sense. If you have watched Dana Coverstone's dream videos, he always seems to leave us in the lurch. He says that hold your breath, for example, or brace yourself. And the question is always, what are you bracing yourself for? What are you holding your breath for? What's going to come next? What's the conclusion of these dreams? And I think this new addition to the they don't hate me, they hate you dream, I think this does tell us what comes next. That's why I think it was so interesting and why I wanted to do this today and let you be aware of this so you could watch his video. It's quite interesting. So let's put the slide on the screen and I will read the part that he revealed this morning, which he said came before his dream, but I believe comes at the end. So let's read this. I'll put it on the screen. First of all, I saw a doctor. I was in a medical room, a hospital room, and there was a mother who was about to give birth. And I was standing behind the mother, looking straight ahead at the doctor who was about to deliver the baby. The mother was doing those traditional pushes and the moans and the screams and just the pain of the birth process. And the baby came out very, very bloody. It was just covered in blood. Probably Dana didn't want to relate this part of the dream because it's kind of gruesome looking. That's another reason. The reason he said he needed it to be interpreted before it was he posted it. And I'm going to discuss on this program that this woman and this child are found in the book of Revelation. That's why I say that this provides a conclusion to his dreams, because Revelation 12:1 does give us a concise conclusion to end times events. And I think we'll see that this first part of his dream lines up with Bible prophecy. So let's look at the second part. And the mother kind of gave a last, exasperated look at the child and then slipped into eternity and died. And that baby was taken by the doctor and the nurses and was wrapped in a very, very white receiving blanket. And it was laid on a table or like a bed, and the blood began to soak through the white cloth. But the baby was going to live, and there was no doubt about that. But it was a very, very traumatic scene. And it's not only a traumatic scene, it's very vivid imagery. And I think, for example, the white cloth indicates purity. And this child is the same child as in Revelation 12, which is caught up to God and to his throne. In other words, the child who is raptured. Now, I want to review, first of all, Dana Coverstone's dream about the they don't hate me, they hate you dream. And I think you'll see that what he received this morning solves the problem, so to speak, because he gives 5 entities in our nation which are not going to save America, if you remember that dream. And first, he said the church is not going to save America. And the church is symbolized by a hospital that is full of newborn babies with nurses all going around helter-skelter. And there's hundreds of babies, and the hospital is like a big auditorium. And that's because it symbolizes the church, and the church is in a state of confusion. And the part that Dana Coverstone added came before this scene, but as I say, I believe it comes at the end. The second entity that is not going to save America in that dream was the military. And that was symbolized by the F-16s flying around in circles. Remember, there were 2 F-16s flying around Washington going in circles. That shows that the military is in a state of confusion. Or they're aimless. They have no direction. The third element is the economy. The great American economy is not going to save this country. And that is symbolized by the money going up the chimney and floating away like a hurricane, remember? And nobody got the money. The people on the ground, the people, the higher-ups in the ground, nobody got the money. And I think that's a perfect example of the stimulus checks. Money grows on trees in Washington, as we all know. And but we don't get it, ultimately. If you read those, according to the critics anyway, most of the stimulus bill goes to foreign countries or to special interests. And eventually, I'm sure a lot of it finds its way back into the pockets of the congressman. Fourthly, Donald Trump is not going to save America. And this is true with Kim Clement's dream. Remember, he has a dream. And in his dream, his vision, I should say, Donald Trump does not save America. The church does not save America. Neither does Jesus save America. As in Kim Clement's dream, the woman Esther saves America. And we'll see that's exactly what Dana Coverstone is saying here also. And we saw Donald Trump in Dana Coverstone's dream bruised. Both of his ears were bruised and he was in handcuffs. And that symbolizes that he can't help us either. And the fifth element was Congress. The people in Congress were at each other's throats. And of course, we see that today, right now. There's total disunity. They cannot save America. I hope we are not attacked because we are in total disarray in this country. I don't even know if Joe Biden has the nuclear suitcase. I don't think anybody does. Can you imagine him being in charge of the military in this country? In any event, Dana Coverstone's numerology does tell us who will save America. And I pointed this out to you. There are 5 elements listed that won't save America, but the 5 is, of course, Mary's number in Bible prophecy. And we see that, for example, and I've told you many times, those of you who pray the rosary with me every morning at 10 a.m. on this channel, 5 is the number of stones that David chose against Goliath, even though he only needed 1 stone. And those 5 symbolize Mary's rosary. Mary's rosary is the weapon Jesus uses against the Antichrist, just as David chose 5 smooth pebbles against Goliath. So that's why Dana Coverstone, I'm sure he did not separate his vision out into 5 distinct sections, but that was the meaning of it. But now I think what we're going to find out, that this new edition tells the same thing, because it corresponds to Revelation 12. And the woman in Revelation 12 represents 2 things. It represents Mary, and it represents the Remnant Catholic Church. And the child, now, in the near time, it would indicate Jesus, but not in the end times. In the end times, the child represents the remnant Protestant church, which Mary will give birth to. Well, I don't think Dana Coverstone understands that. But let's take a look at Revelation 12, verses 1, 2, and 5, and 6. And we'll see how similar this is to Dana Coverstone's dream. In just a minute, I will bring the slide up on the screen. Revelation 12:1. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being with child, she cried, travailing in birth, and was in pain to be delivered. And how close is that to Dana's dream? The woman is in pain to be delivered. A lot of people say, well, this can't be Mary, because Mary did not suffer childbirth pains when she brought forth Jesus. Jesus' birth was immaculate, just like his conception. But Mary is not birthing Jesus here. That's one way you can tell. She is birthing the remnant Protestant church, and that is very painful for Mary. And in this scene where the child is born with a lot of blood, that's not the child's blood, that's the woman's blood. And we see many statues of Mary weeping blood. That's because it's very difficult for her at this time to save the Protestants, but she will. And that's what this prophecy is all about. So let me read the rest of that, verse number 2 in Revelation. And being with, I read that, and being in child, she travailed in birth and was in pain to be delivered. A very perfect description of what Dana Coverstone saw. Verse number 12. Verse number 5. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with an iron rod. And her son was taken up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, that they should feed her 1,260 days. Now, Dana's dream does not complete the imagery, but he points us to Revelation. Now, in Dana's dream, the woman dies, whereas in Revelation 12, she flees into the wilderness. And that's the Remnant Catholic Church. That's our destination, is to flee into the wilderness. The child in Dana's dream is laid on the table, whereas in Revelation, the child is caught up to God and to the throne. That's the remnant Protestants, whom Mary has given birth to. She will convert the Protestants. And quite a few people have always complained to me, why do I say the Protestants will be raptured when they don't know Mary and they don't have the sacraments? Well, I think Revelation 12 gives us the answer. They will be converted first. Mary will convert them, and then they will be raptured. So I think that is about all I wanted to say. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Dana Coverstone wouldn't understand this part of the dream, especially the part of Mary. He says in this program that he is an Assembly of God pastor, and I suspect, just like Kim Clement, if the Lord told him that Mary was going to save America, he would probably dismiss it and say that it didn't come from the Holy Spirit. And that's why the Lord told Kim Clement that the woman's name was Esther. Of course, Esther is a prefigure of Mary in the Bible. Now, here's something, the next thing I want to talk about is very interesting. And that is, why did Dana Coverstone receive this dream at this time? Well, next month is the anniversary of the great sign that appeared in heaven. This great sign, which I just read for you. The woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being with child, she is about to be delivered. That image was fulfilled almost 3.5 years ago. Is that significant? Because 1,260 days, 42 months, 3.5 years from that date, which was September 23rd, 2017, that date, those dates, the dates are a little bit different. They will both come up next month. Is that why Dana Coverstone received this dream? Now, I want to show you that image because I don't know whether you know this, but I was the one who discovered this sign. Are you aware of that? And if you don't believe me, the only person that would give me credit, by the way, is Wikipedia. Nobody else gives me credit for discovering this sign. But you can go to Wikipedia, just search great sign. Let me see if I can get this on the screen. So here is the great sign as it appeared in the constellations. And this configuration of the constellations and the sun and the moon and the stars only occurs once in 7,000 years of human history. Jesus said his return would be announced by signs in the sun, moon, and the stars. And this sign is called the Great Sign. So ultimately what this sign showed was the return of Jesus. And it occurred September 23rd, 2017, as I say. Now, it could be the 24th because it appeared in Israel on the 24th. And this artwork is not very good because it shows Virgo, the constellation Virgo, standing up. And of course, Virgo stands for Mary. But if you look at the stars, if you look at the stick figure, so to speak, the outline of the lines between the stars, you see that the stick figure, the hip joints, the legs are bent at the hip joints, and they are bent at the knee joints. That's a typical posture for childbirth. And another problem with this, it shows the moon at her feet, just as in prophecy, but the moon is actually a crescent moon. I don't know why the artist showed this as a full moon. I guess maybe because it's more recognizable. But the crescent moon, of course, has a lot of symbolism. It symbolizes the snake in Genesis 3:15. It symbolizes Islam. It symbolizes communism. And Mary will crush all of those entities. Now, we see that she is clothed with the sun. And as I say, you can't go by the artwork. The artwork, for example, shows her hands at her side. I believe her hands should be above her head. Leo traditionally has 9 stars, prominent stars. But on this particular date, there are 3 wandering stars. In other words, planets that move into position to join the other 9 stars. As you can see, Mercury, Mars, and Venus, which gives you the crown of 12 stars. This really is a very remarkable alignment of sun, moon, and stars. And as I say, it only occurs once every 7 years, once every 7,000 years. In other words, in all of human history. And the last part of this great sign is the birthing of Jupiter. As you can see at the bottom of your screen, Jupiter is coming through her hips. In other words, being born. And Jupiter was located in Virgo's womb for about 9.5 months, maybe a little more. In other words, the traditional gestation period for a child. And the only reason it stayed that long in the womb area was because of retrograde motion. So the question is, did Dana Coverstone have this dream to point us to the significance of this great sign, which the Bible calls the great sign? And as I say, come March, in other words, a few weeks from now, there will be the anniversary date of this great sign. In other words, 3.5 years from September 23rd or 24th, that weekend, will be March 23rd and 24th. Or 42 months, the same date, 23rd, 24th. I think if you count 1,260 days, it would be March 5th, I believe. And what's the significance of those time spans? That's the time span of the Great Tribulation. The 70th year of Daniel is divided into 2 parts. In other words, will the Great Tribulation start next month? And there's nothing in the sign that indicates, and I'm not giving a date. Please don't accuse me of giving a date, because the child being taken up to heaven refers to the rapture. And Jesus says over and over again, you cannot know the date of the rapture. So I'm certainly not going to give a date for the rapture. And I don't think you can really give a date for the other events either. I'm just alerting you to that possibility. I'm going to do a more thorough study of the Revelation 12 sign, hopefully next week, and how it relates to the prophecies of the rapture of the Protestants, and of the remnant Catholics fleeing into the desert. Okay, so I think that concludes my program, and I'm glad quite a few of you have stayed around for it. And before I go and see what you would like to talk about in the chat, I hope you want to comment on this video and Dana Coverstone's dream, because it really is an amazing dream that he received. I believe he gets true prophecy. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I don't think he gets usually a complete prophecy, but I think that this appearance of the woman and the child completes the previous dream, which is really unique in all of his dreams, because he doesn't complete them. He leaves us holding our breath, so to speak. Okay, now for those of you who are new to this program, if you'd like to contact me, here is my address. William Tapley, Post Office Box 291, Osage, Iowa, 50461. And if you would like to contact my moderator on this program, Sister Renee, you can use that same address. Just type on or write on your envelope, "Attention, Sister Renee," and I will pass it right along to her. And as usual, I want to remind people that I have written 4 books, 4 315-page books called The Holy Spirit Guide to End Times Prophecy. And you can order these on my website, thirdeaglemedia.com. Just click on the newsletter tab at the top of the website. And under that newsletter, there are 5 or 6 options. Click on the July newsletter, and there is an order form right on there. And if you want to pay for it right away, then you have to go to the donate button. And if you would like to see what you're getting into buying these books, There's 4 different volumes, as I say. You can read these books. I'm not trying to hide anything from you. All of these books are available on my website. Just look under the transcript tab. There's over 1,000 pages on there. And a lot of illustrations. And you really need my books to understand end times prophecy, because there are tons of false prophets out there, as Jesus said there would be, and they don't understand that end times prophecy is a particular type of prophecy. It must be decoded. You must understand the structure before you even attempt to interpret it. And that's what I explained in those books. And you can, as I say, you can read it on my website. Okay, let's take a look and see what everyone would like to talk about tonight. I know I don't usually do the program at this time of the evening, but as I say, I felt obliged to let people know what Dana Coverstone was receiving, because we're in these end times, and I have to be able to respond very quickly. And everything I've done so far, just moving out here to Iowa, was to prepare me so that I could respond quickly to what is going on. Okay, Cara Farah mentions March 31st, the woman clothed with the sun happens. It actually occurred on September 23rd/24, 2017. But you're right, in March will be the anniversary date. 1,260 days, 42 months, and so on. I think it's closer to March 23rd, however. But you could be right. Those dates don't have to be exact. May Sampson said, I know this program is going to be good. Thanks, May. Full Strength is here. So is Tina Sislow. To the Revolution. And you could all say you could see me. Well, you know, I have to... See, these are special programs because I have to arrange the slides. I have to put them on screen back and forth. There are 3 different screens, 3 different visual things I have to organize here. So I accidentally let you see me checking everything out. Normally, what I should have put on there was the logo. That's sorry about that. Sandra Levini says, I'll watch after Pieta Rosary in the following devotion. Well, I hope I didn't tread on anybody's toes. If I'm not mistaken, isn't Rosary WMD, doesn't he start in like about 5 minutes? I tried to plan it so that I didn't interfere with any of the rosaries. Elsa Mayoral is here. Sister says, hey, everybody, Paula sent me a picture of what she sees of Jesus in the sky from my photograph, and it's the exact opposite of what's on the picture. Isn't that interesting? Now, there's another program I've got to do. I mean, we'll talk about it tomorrow on the Rosary at 10 a.m. Eastern Time if you want to watch that. And we'll talk about it some more then. But I want to do a program on that, too. Okay, Rosary and Scapular. Sam just finished. Okay, good. I thought I had it planned fairly well. Sister Renee says, I remember yesterday someone said that they saw a dual image. Perhaps this is what Paul is seeing, and maybe you too. So there is no right or wrong. It's however Jesus shows you his body in the sky. I think that's very likely, Sister Renee. I know when I first saw your photograph of Jesus crucified in the clouds, I did not see it the way Alan James did. After he showed me his interpretation, then I saw it. So, anyway, and there could be more than one interpretation. In Bible prophecy, there's very often dual prophecies. Let's see, Tina Sizzle would love to see it. Annabelle says, good evening, William. JMJ is here. And JMJ says, thank you for this interpretation. Mr. T, can you do Esther? Well, I've done Esther many times, JMJ. Just go to my website, and my YouTube channel, and type in playlists. I think I've done Esther twice. 107 said what we are going through will be a final persecution, as did Esther. I'm sure. Esther is a prophecy of these end times. I think he's right about that. Christine Roder Tribe is here. JMJ. May Sampson. To the Revolution says nothing to do with the program, but I'm wondering if Pence or a representative will testify against Trump. I wouldn't doubt it. You talk about somebody being persecuted, the greatest president we've had since Abraham Lincoln. And they're treating him like dirt, just like the media. Boy. And he didn't have to do it, as QAnon used to say. He didn't. He could have stayed building his businesses, but I mean, aren't we glad that he did take upon this, being president? But with Biden as president, that has to be too. I'm sure God appointed him, because the 10 kings of the Antichrist have to take over all of the countries in the world. That paves the way for the Antichrist. So it had to be. Remember, God appoints the Antichrist, just as he has already appointed the false prophet in the Vatican right now. Okay, thanks for that. To the revolution. Mary Sampson says, yes to Esther. Yes, that's what we have to say. Yes to Esther. And Kim Clement said in his vision, he said, if you want this to America, if you want this, if you want Esther to save us, you must say yes to Esther. And that's what the Protestants especially have to do. And then Sister said, well, not just Protestants. There's a lot of fallen away Catholics. And that's true. They have to say yes to Esther. A lot of the bishops and priests, how many of them preach about Esther or Daniel or any of the Old Testament prophets as far as that goes? And they don't convert to the Roman Catholic Church. They convert to the Remnant Catholic Church. They will probably be converted by Archbishop Vigano. Oh, Maria says, verse 12 also looks like the Guadalupe tilma. There's no doubt that the Guadalupe tilma image was a partial fulfillment of Revelation 12. You see the woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet. There's no doubt that was a early fulfillment of that prophecy. Sister Renee says, I've always heard that the woman birthing the child was the birth of the Remnant Church. Well, I've gone through quite a few interpretations myself. The traditional interpretation is that the child is Jesus, and he's the one caught up to the throne. But that's pretty obvious, and I don't think that anymore. And I used to think the child being birthed was the Remnant Church, but it's not, because it's the woman who's the Remnant Church, and she flees into the desert. That's the Remnant Catholic Church. She is giving birth to the Remnant Protestant Church. That is, the child who will be raptured. And I also have to say many times that there will be only a tiny fraction of Protestants who will be raptured. And I'm sure that they will be praying the rosary. That's what Revelation 12 is telling us. It's the woman, as we see in Dana's dream, the woman is pained to give birth. And that's one of the reasons we say that Mary is co-redemptrix, because she does suffer. That's why we see all these statues of Mary weeping and weeping blood, weeping tears. Billy Manor says, and you could say it at 10:30 Central when Scott says a great rosary when he remembers to turn the sound on. Yes, we've had to remind him several times to turn the sound on. May Sampson says, usually babies are swaddled in a white cloth with a blue trim, almost Jewish looking. The baby in the dream is swaddled in a bright white cloth. I'm sure it symbolizes purity. It symbolizes the child who will be raptured. I mean, the Dana's dream did not complete that image as Revelation 12 does. Rosary and Scapular says yes to Esther. Sister Ray says, perhaps when Dana saw the woman dying, it was the dying of the Roman Catholic Church, after the Remnant Church is brought forth with much suffering and blood. Well, I don't think so, because that's the advantage of of Revelation 12, because the woman does not die there, and the child is not left on the table with blood. So I think, but I admit, in the Dana's dream, if there were nothing that came after that, if there were no relation to the Revelation 12 sign, then you could say that. May Sampson says the blood is life-giving. If you need a blood transfusion, my chat just took off. Excuse me, people. I have to try and find out where I was. The blood saves you if you get a transfusion. Well, certainly the blood represents life. But I think the woman has lost blood in the childbirth. The child is not going to die. Dana makes that clear. The woman dies. And the woman doesn't actually die, but that was to symbolize just how much she has put in to bringing forth the remnant Protestants. Sister Renee says, very exciting times. Isn't this the truth? It's unbelievable that we're living through these times. I know one thing. When I drive around town, I always, when I get in that car, I say, St. Michael, are you there? Clear the road and clear the air, here, there, and everywhere. And Sister Renee taught me to say that. And when I came out here to Iowa, I said that all the time, continually. I was nervous. Let's see. JMJ says March 25th is the Annunciation. Maybe that's the key date. Also on that date, by the way, March 23rd and 24th, which, as I say, is an anniversary of the Great Sign. It's not in winter, and it's not on a Sabbath. Is that also significant? In other words, May 23rd, that's, I think, the first full day of spring. So it's not on winter, and I know it's not a Sabbath. I think it's like a Wednesday. Does that mean something? March 19th is St. Joseph, spouse of the Blessed Mother. And JMJ says that her birthday is September 12th. Well, you didn't have to add that, but 10 if you want to. May Sampson says, do you think that the time you mentioned will be contingent on any Jewish holy days? Well, the Jewish holy days, there are spring feasts and there are fall feasts. And the fall feasts, or the spring feasts, Jesus has already fulfilled those. The fall feasts have not been fulfilled yet. James Toller likes my explanation. Well, thanks, James. Abdel Ruiz. I can't pronounce that Spanish name. It's a simple name. Mr. Tabley, good evening. How about World War III? Well, how about the Daniel 9 War? That kicks off World War III. Israel is no longer protected. Biden has no use for Israel, neither do the Democrats. Israel knows this. With Trump in there, peace was blooming in the Middle East. That's the last thing the deep state wants, was peace. The last thing the Scarlet Beast wants is peace. So World War III, I think, is imminent. Sister Renee says that March 25th is St. Padre Pio of Pietrelcina. I don't pronounce that too well. Diane Thornton says, where does this fit into the illumination of conscience? That's a good question. There's another thing we don't know the time of. We were talking about that over the weekend. Sister Renee and I and quite a few people on the chat were talking about February 7th as the possible date for the warning. It didn't turn out that way. But that has to do with her photograph. We'll talk about that tomorrow morning. Tina Sizzle says, I have used Padre Pio as an example a couple of times when I have been scandalized in the confessional. I have told them directly what would Father Padre Pio say. I think Tina, she goes to priests who probably should go to confession to her. The way Tina explains it. Oh, Sister Renee says the March 25th is Padre Pio's birthday. Okay, thanks. Tina Sissel says, with both, yes, everyone is burdened with original sin. Yes, the effects of original sin are washed away by baptism, but is that right? No, the effects of original sin remain, but I forget theologically how that is expressed, but Rosary and Scapular says, oh, wait a minute, Ann Diesel says, anniversary roughly almost 40 days into Lent. I think you're right. Rosary and Scapulars. Wait a minute. Where am I here? Oh, the chat just took off. Rosary and Scapular says 325 is Kim Clement's prophecy on Esther. That's a good point too, Rosary and Scapular. Kim Clement received his vision on the Feast of the Annunciation in 2011, as you note. He did not understand the significance of that. Well, of course, it's not up to the prophet, actually, to understand his prophecy. Neither Dana Coverstone nor Kim Clement understood it. In fact, if you look up that video where Kim Clement talks about his vision, he asks for interpretation. Because that was true with Daniel. Daniel did not understand his prophecy. He pestered the angel. He wanted to know. The angel finally told him, "Go your way, Daniel. The vision is for another time." Kyle's Rosary. Yeah, Kyle's Rosary is on right now, people. So if you want to go over there and say the Rosary, be sure to do that. Jerry G says, prayers for safe travel tomorrow and Friday as I head to Florida with my son. We'll be praying with you in spirit. Okay, very good. Thanks, Jerry. Annabelle says, how horrific. Are you talking about Dana's dream with the baby? Sister says, thanks, JMJ. CB says, no Pence prophecies. I wonder why he was a mystery. Maybe God blessed him and helped him and us all. Well, the only notice I've seen with Pence is that Trump Pence is very much like Trump Pets. So I'm not sure if that's significant or not. JMJ, Waxape is here. Catholic Septuagint Bible has a dream by Mordecai. Has dream of two dragons fighting. King James doesn't have that. That dream is apocryphal. It's not really part of the original Esther. In that case, I think the King James Bible is correct. It's just like with Daniel, the last two chapters, 13 and 14, in the Douay-Rheims Bible, which 90% I use. The translations I used on this program are from the Douay-Rheims. But they make a mistake of adding two chapters to Daniel. That's not part of Daniel. Those two books are about Daniel, but not by Daniel. They should be separated. It's okay to have them in the Bible. I'm sure they should be, but they should be separated. Probably a separate chapter. Daniel 2, for example. In the same way with the addition to Queen Esther, to the book of Esther. That dream by Mordecai is not in the original. Tina says, we will be warned before the 3 days of darkness, but if you are caught unaware, go into the first open door you find and close it behind you. Yes, I think that's true. I've heard that. CB says, off topic, is it wrong to be scared to go into a face-to-face confessional? Well, don't you usually have the option? I don't mind going to face-to-face. Usually you have an option. Most of the confessionals I've seen lately, there's a chair opposite the priest, and there's a chair behind a curtain. So I kind of make a compromise. I go in front of the priest. I say, thank you, Father. I'm here to go to confession or something like that. And he says, yes. Yes, my son, even though I'm older than he is practically every time. So then I usually go to confession because I like to kneel when I'm going to confession, but I don't see anything. I'm scared to go to any kind of confession. I don't like any confession as far as I can go. But, of course, then the consolation is that you always feel a lot better when you're through with confession. If you want to read an interesting story about confession, read Loretta Young's autobiography called Forever Young. When she goes to confession and she's living in mortal sin with Spencer Tracy, and they're both Catholics, and they're both going to confession, and they are having an affair. It's crazy. Hollywood has a whole different set of morals out there. Okay, I think I'm going to. Well, I got time, I guess. I don't like to take away from Rosary WMD's Rosary. Let's see, Rosary and Scapular. It says March 25th is the day Adam and Eve were created. Jesus died on the cross. John the Baptist was beheaded. At Lourdes, Our Lady said, I am the Immaculate Conception, and also the Annunciation. Okay, so March 25th may be very significant. Waxape is here. Rui Duarte de Andrade Adeo. Well, there's a user handle. Sister Renee Mauser, Padre Pio's birthday is on the May 25th. Uh-oh, we've got a little discussion here. And I can't tell you because I have no idea. Luciana Perry says these same signs were in the sky at the time of Jesus' birth and death. Only the moon was slightly different. I saw this in a documentary called The Star of Bethlehem. The stars may have been that way, but I don't think Jupiter was in the womb of Virgo for 40 for, let's see, not 42 months. How many months was Virgo was in the 9.5 months. Jupiter is in the womb of Virgo in the great sign as it appeared September 23rd, which, by the way, you can still see. That's the amazing thing about the great sign, and you can see it right now if you get a stellarium, which is a free program. You can watch Jupiter going into the womb, traveling through the womb, through retrograde motion, and then being born on September 23rd. Let's see. Ruiz. Okay, Tina Sislo says, Ruiz is the way you pronounce Ruiz. Okay, Ruiz, but say it quickly. Okay, thanks, Tina. I'm sorry I don't know Spanish at all. I never took Spanish. I did take French in high school, but I do know somewhat how to pronounce French, and I did take Latin, which I'm glad I did. Let's see, May Sampson said, or Mr. Tapley, could the blood on the child's swaddling cloth represent the babies that have been aborted? That's an interesting possibility, May. I didn't think about that. That's true. That would be in Revelation 6. Maybe there is a significance there to Revelation 6. As I've said many times on here, what are those aborted babies doing right now? 55 million in this country. They are not praying for America. Not according to John in the book of Revelation. They are praying for vengeance on America, and God grants them vengeance. But thanks for that, May. You could be right about that. Rosary Piper says, me too, September 12th. Okay. Rosary Piper was born on September 12th. Oh, yeah. Twins. Larry Tischler says, Conchita from Garabandal was on TV. The video has been on TV for several years, and she said the warning is coming soon. She does not know the date of the warning, I don't think. She knows the date of the miracle. But, of course, if she knows the date of the miracle, she knows the warning comes a year ahead of that time. Ruiz says that Conchita has a house in Fatima. I wonder why she would be in Fatima, not in Garabandal. Tina says, what I know is that Bibles use both the Greek and Hebrew originals, which is why you find books in the Catholic Bibles that you don't find in Protestant Bibles. Well, Martin Luther took out, I think, a half dozen books from the Catholic Bible. He wanted to take out more than that. So, a lot of the Hebrew, of course, is long gone. I mean, Genesis, Exodus, those books are, you'll never find the original Hebrew for them. JMJ says, Mr. T, could you have Sister Renee share her pictures of the Garabandal pilgrimage tour? Last week, dream, I think she's just sent it. She was on a dirt road. Behind her, around on the right, was tall pines. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about there. She had a sweater on, her wavy hair was slightly blowing, like pulsating in the wind. I think to let me know that she and the warning is alive. I don't think Sister Renee has showed me any pictures of her Garabandal pilgrimage. JMJ says Conchita is her name. Yep, Conchita Gonzalez. Tina Sislo says, as far as I know, she knows the dates of both. I don't think so, Tina. I think Mary Lowley was given the date of the warning, and she's passed away. I think Conchita knows the date of the miracle. Broken Helm says, are you a fan of Enoch? Well, I've read the book of Enoch, and I believe the first chapter is true, and it's referred to in the New Testament. But I think the rest of Enoch is all fanciful, made up. I don't think it's true. But the first chapter is. That's my opinion. I'm not really an expert. Nan Flo says, Jesus to John Leary gives insight to the warning. Okay. Rui Duarte says, Mr. Tapley, what is your opinion of Father Michel Rodrigue? Well, I think he's getting better. He used to say that Pope Francis was a true pope, but I think he's beginning to say now that he needs to repent. So, and I shouldn't say much more about him because I haven't really don't know everything that he says. Phil is here, and he says, I agree that the aborted babies will have their vengeance. This is what the Q people do not understand. They equate Q saying God wins to God saving America. Well, I think that's a good point, Phil. Rui says that Mary Lowley passed away in 2009. That reminds me. Here's something you probably won't see anywhere. And this is a picture of Mary Lowley's wedding, sent to me by one of my subscribers. Can you see that up on the side? Mary Lowley and her husband Frank, according to what she wrote on there. Mary Lowley's wedding to the USA. I don't know what she's got there. And then she said there's a picture of her sister. And I think there's another wedding picture on here. Oh, there it is. Mary Lowley's wedding and her husband Frank. Said the rosary 3 times a day. So I have no reason to doubt that that isn't Mary Lowley's wedding. So whoever sent that to me, thank you very much. I look at that quite often. Okay, everybody. I think that is it. I will see you all tomorrow at the same time, same station. I hope you got a lot out of this program. I did. It was a good challenge for me to be able to do a video in an hour, several hours notice. Okay, so until I do see all of you again, may God bless all of you, and may all of you have a very blessed rest of this evening.